can't believe people leave their car doors unlocked. I found credit cards, debit cards, and social security cards. It's like stealing candy from a baby.
Aha! I caught you.
Party pooper, be safe. You can't stop me. I know my rights. I'm just walking around here.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, the days of Mayberry are pretty much over. I'll take Rob You Blind to jail. However, he will be back. It's important to keep all your doors locked and your valuables secured, because Rob You Blind will take full advantage of crimes of opportunity. So remember to take the extra step and lock your stuff up. And that's your tip of the day from Sergeant Be Safe.
Subscribe now.
There we go. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know it's been a long time. We're on a different platform right now. For some of you, it's brand new. It's a brand new platform. We're streaming live on Black and Blue on Facebook. We are on LinkedIn, and we are on the Black and Blue page on YouTube right now. Okay. And this will be shared across many platforms. Some of you have followed all the way from the years of the lab and saw the transition. I told you the transition was coming, and we are here. It's been a long time coming, but it came, and I'm excited to bring a special guest to you, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about Black and Blue. We're talking about law enforcement here in America. We're talking about the effects that it has. We're talking about the effects that it has on people, and how whatever questions that you guys have, I want you to bring them to the table. And the special guest I have here, wrote his own book. He's a retired police officer from the LA County Sheriff Department. He was with them for 32 years. He's an author. He's an author of this book, which we will be discussing as well. This one right here, I got my copy. Make sure you guys get yours. Black and white and gray all over. We got Frederick Reynolds here. He's also a United States Marine Corps retiree. He did 6 years of service in the Marine Corps, for all you vets out there. He talks about his personal life. He talks about experiences. He talks about being on the job. Ladies and gentlemen, after this short break, I will have him here and we will introduce him officially. Stay tuned. All right, just a little video, something new. I hope you guys like this, something that we came up with, just to break up the levity and to have a little fun. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm gonna bring them to the stage right now. Got Frederick Reynolds back here, and we're gonna start the interview. We're gonna let it go right now. Here we go. Bam, Fred, you there?
I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you for making yourself available. I know we've been talking about this for a few months now, and we're finally here, live in living color, to talk about some things in law enforcement, to talk about some things in the African American community, and definitely to talk about your book right here. Thank you for being available. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to come on your show. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
I think it's something that's necessary. I love the title, and I'm 100% here for you. 100% here for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Just a little background about myself. I'm a 60-year-old man, grandfather, 9 grandchildren. I have 6 kids, and I'm raising a 7th child, who's 10 years old.
Okay.
I'm married. I was born in Rocky Mount, Virginia. I grew up in Detroit. My family moved there when I was about 3 years old. So I grew up in pretty rough part of Detroit. I got involved with a bad element while I was growing up. Ended up gravitating towards a life of crime and gangs, and I ended up dropping out of school and went to juvenile hall. But as I started getting older and I saw some of my friends going to prison, and some of them even getting murdered, I didn't want that for myself. So I had to get away from Detroit, get away from that atmosphere and that peer pressure. So I ended up joining the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And it's funny. I just happened to be walking down the street one day. Actually, I was looking for something to steal. Okay, and I found myself in front of a Marine Corps recruiting center, and I said, "Well, let me go in here and see what's going on." So went in there, ended up joining. I wanted to be, the tough guy, right? The guy with the rifles. Right. So recruiter, I want to be that guy on the recruiting poster who just happened to be an infantryman, which is a grunt, right? 0311. So I enlisted to be in the infantry, and went in. I went to boot camp in California, and my first duty station was in Okinawa, Japan, and I was there for about a year. And after I got back from Okinawa, I was stationed at Camp Pendleton, and ended up meeting a young lady during one of our weekend Liberty excursions in Inglewood, California, at a nightclub. And she just happened to be from a city called Compton. I had never heard of Compton, right? Okay. And I started seeing her, and ultimately we got married, and ended up getting out of the Marine Corps. She was pregnant. We moved in with her mother in the city of Compton. The money that I had saved up from the Marine Corps ran out. Her mom was charging me to live there. And when the money ran out, she told me I couldn't live there anymore. So, I ended up, ultimately, I was homeless for a little while, sleeping in cars and, all night movie theaters, trying to find a job. And I crossed the picket line at Greyhound, worked at Greyhound for a little while. And something happened at Greyhound that kind of changed my whole perspective on life.
Right.
I was a janitor, and I unloaded buses in the interim, and a guy tried to steal this lady's luggage, and she had a bunch of kids, and I just thought I just reacted, and I ended up catching the guy and getting her luggage back, and the reaction that I got from her and her kids, it changed me, right? When I realized how much I had helped these people. And I had never really wanted to be a cop, but after that, I figured maybe I could be one. You know what I mean? It's a job, pays the bills, and if I can help people, like I just helped this lady, maybe I could. So I ended up applying to be a police officer for the city of Compton. I got hired, and I worked there for the next 14 years.
Okay. All right, yeah, that was the we're gonna dig a little deeper in the stories too, and I know it sounds like a rerun to me because I know I read most of what you just explained in your book here, and we're gonna talk about that. But I know reading your book, you talk very vividly and very proudly of your family in North Carolina and going to go visit them, I believe, on the farm and things like that. What kind of transition was that for you to go from North Carolina to the Chicago area?
Virginia. And I know it gets confusing because there's a Rocky Mountain in North Carolina too.
I'm very familiar with that one. Yeah.
Right. So that one's a little more well known than the Rocky Mountain in Virginia. But the
Okay.
Rocky Mountain that I grew up in, or that I was born in, rather, is in Virginia.
Okay.
And it was like night and day, from where I was growing up in Detroit, as
Mm-hmm.
far as like hardcore city life. And my family, we would go to Rocky Mount during the summers because that's where all of our family was still living, right?
Right.
I always had this dichotomy of life or of living to experience.
Mm-hmm.
I loved going to the country,
Mm-hmm.
only for a short while every time, and I had great experiences there growing up. But ultimately, I was drawn to the street life in Detroit.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And it had a real negative effect on me to the point where I had to get away.
Right.
It was the best decision I ever made because it changed my life. So.
Right, and I don't want to give away too many gems and pearls that are in the book, but I know, and it's very. I appreciate you being very vulnerable and very honest in your book and telling us about your childhood and upbringing. And I know a lot of people today and or in the past can relate to actually not actually being law enforcement per se right now and actually coming up or being around the wrong crowd or doing things that are questionable or doing things that are illegal at certain times in their life to actually maturing and growing and knowing that they have to get out of a certain situation. Once you explain a lot of some things from your past very well to the point where if a new somebody would read this book now, they could bypass or hopefully bypass doing a lot of similar things that took place. I.e., I know you discuss hanging out with certain friends or going to certain parties or just witnessing certain things in the Detroit area coming up.
Right. And I think, later on after I became a police officer, I think it served me well. I think that was kind of like at the crux of my success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had experienced some of the things that these kids were dealing with at the time I confronted them as a law enforcement officer. So I was able to empathize with them and able to give them some guidance when needed. And I think a lot of them recognized, a kindred spirit in myself. And, I was successful in some regards, but, other times I had to do the job, and some people just refused to listen no matter what. Yeah. So it wasn't always an iron fist that I had when I was policed. A lot of times I knew how to wear a velvet glove over that fist, and to get through to a lot of these kids and a lot of kids that I probably could have taken off the streets and sent to prison. I didn't. Because I wanted them to have an opportunity to have a chance to make something better of their lives, much in the same way that I did. Right now, could I have made mistakes sometimes along the way? Yeah, probably, and I probably did. But I think the chance that I was able to prevent someone from going totally down the wrong path, I think it was well worth it. Taking that chance. So, I don't regret anything in any way, shape, form, or fashion that I dealt with some of the kids that I had to deal with on the streets of Compton while I was working.
And so, as you stated that you knew you had to get away and you enlisted in the Marine Corps and you did 6 years there, do you think those years were beneficial and they helped you from the life that you had beforehand?
Oh yeah, yeah. They were definitely beneficial. I was still a knucklehead for the most part when I went in the Marine Corps, and I did some dumb things in there, but some of the things I did, they didn't rise to the level that it affected the type of discharge that I got. I still served honorably, and I got my honorable discharge and did 3 years active, and then I did 3 years as an inactive
Okay.
reserve. As a matter of fact, the day that I got my full discharge certificate was right around the time that I graduated from the police academy.
Okay.
So
All
it kind of like came full circle.
right. I remember reading in your book as well, that after you kind of transitioned from out of being in the Marine Corps and you're living in California and you're working for Greyhound, like you said, and something happens where you come across a police officer who was working and interviewed you or talked to you in a way that you said you never had before, and you kind of gravitated or emulated toward that individual. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was another situation that
Okay.
made me reconsider the way that I felt toward law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, the way that I grew up and the interactions that I had with law enforcement as a child, growing up on the streets of Detroit, they were all negative. And
Mm-hmm.
to be honest with you, I hated cops. Right,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the cops in Detroit were racist, and I'm just going to keep it 100.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them were racist. The area that I lived in, it was predominantly black, and I never saw a black police officer the entire time that I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So this situation that you're referring to, I was working two jobs at
Okay.
the time because working at Greyhound, I wasn't making that much, so I got another full-time job to so I could live, right, and take care of my kids, take care of my family. Um, and a situation happened. I was working as a security guard, and the store got robbed, and I wasn't there. I was sleeping on duty or whatever because I was tired from my other job, and my supervisor was kind of insinuating that I may have been involved in it and knew what happened. But there was a black police officer there, and he talked to me, and I told him the truth, what happened, that I was tired and I was sleeping, and because I have another job, and he believed me, right? And the way he talked to me, with respect, it made me realize that not all cops are assholes.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse my language, because I had been accustomed to all cops being assholes. So that was the first positive experience that I had with a cop. And then after I caught the baggage thief at Greyhound, that's when I started having this paradigm shift that perhaps I don't need to be on the wrong side of the law, that perhaps it was okay, to be on the other side. And that's how I started on my path to where I ultimately retired from 32 years later.
Okay. And because of those experiences, you went through the police academy. What was your experiences like actually working the job itself? Can you share some experiences, some stories, good ones and not so good ones, things that you encountered throughout the course of a career?
Yeah, I worked Compton. I went to the academy in 1985, in November of 85, and I ended up the LA County Sheriff's Academy.
Okay.
And I graduated on Valentine's Day, as a matter of fact, in 1986. And I started working on the streets of Compton. And like I said before, I had never heard of Compton. This is before, Snoop and Dr. Dre and all of this, and the rap artists, right? The gangster rap artists. So Compton wasn't widely known, but it was a very, very violent city.
Okay.
It was filled with gangs. Crack had just started to devastate our communities, and the gang members began selling the crack and making obscene amounts of money. And as a result, they had to protect their revenue streams, and they started killing each other. And when I say they started killing each other, it was a complete bloodbath in that city when I first started working there. So Compton's about 10.1 square miles, with a population that varied at times between 80,000, 95,000.
Okay.
And we would average between 75 and 90 murders a year.
Wow.
So wrap your head around that. I mean, it would be like New York City, averaging 100,000 or 800,000 murders a year because they've got 8 million people. They imagine New York City with 800,000 murders a year. So that's what the comparison. That was the comparison. So you have this small city and you have this amount of violence on a daily basis because there was somebody shot every day. Right. As a matter of fact, to this day, there's not a street that I can walk down in that city where I can't remember a murder.
Wow. Not
one single street. So, there was a lot of activity there. I learned a lot. I ended up working as a field training officer. I was responsible for training new police officers. I got chosen or selected to work in the gang unit, which was, pretty prestigious assignment because the city was saturated with gangs, and that's where you made your name. So I became very familiar with working the gangs. And in 1993, as a matter of fact, on today's date in 1993.
Right. Yep.
It was a seminal moment in my not just my professional life, but in my personal one as well. That night, 2 of my colleagues were murdered. And, by that time, 1993, I was one of the senior officers, and I was pretty much responsible for a team of officers that our watch commander had directed to go out into the streets and, just concentrate on the gang activity because we had an uptick in gang related violence, even more so than usual. So we were like, we didn't have to answer any radio calls. The only thing we did was we would go out and hit the hot spots. And it was a pretty busy night to start off with, but it quieted down. And I decided to get off early because I was seeing someone at the time and I wanted to go see her. So I told the team to knock it off, take it to the station, and we're done for the night. 2 of the units, they decided to go and eat, right? Get a late code 7. Code 7 is our radio code for lunch.
Right.
Decided to go get a late lunch, and I was at the station with another one of the units. And apparently after they ate, they got a radio call of shots fired in an area in Compton. So they went over there to investigate it before coming into the station. And during the time they're investigating this call, Kevin Burrell and James McDonald, they decide to stop a red pickup truck for a traffic violation. And during the course of the traffic stop, they contacted one of the, a violent gang member in a nearby city, and he ended up killing them both. And I was at the station about to get undressed to go see this girl when over the station intercom, the dispatcher put out the call of an officer down. I had never heard that. Right. But that's the call that no cop wants to hear. Because cops, we are supposed to be down, right? If a cop goes down, that's bad business. So I started putting my clothes back on, my uniform back on, ran up the stairs, got with my partner. I'm pulling out the back lot to go to the area where the officer down call, and the dispatcher updates the call, and she says there's 2 officers down. And now I know that something horrible had happened when you have 2 officers down. So I get to the scene, and I see the other unit who had went to lunch with Burrell and McDonald. They're blocking off traffic, and I could see on the looks of the look on one of their faces. His name was Gary Davis. He's one of Kevin Burrell's best friends. They played basketball together. When I saw the look on his face, I knew something horrible had happened, and he just pointed down the street. And I drove down the street, and I saw Kevin Burrell lying in the gutter in front of his patrol car. The overhead lights on the patrol car were on, the spotlights were on, which gave me, the indication that they had been on a traffic stop. But there was no other vehicle in front of theirs. So whatever vehicle they had stopped was long gone. But Kevin was in the streets and in the gutter, and he was suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the head, to the face, and I knew he was dead. I had seen enough dead people at that point in my career to know.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the patrol car in the streets, there were James McDonough was lying on the street, and he had multiple gunshot wounds. One was in his face, and I knew he was dead as well. So that was what I saw that night, and when that happens, the world rolls up. You get cops from everywhere. So I looked up. I mean, there were a million cops there, wanting to help out, or police cars from everywhere. And they transported my friends to the hospital where they were, formerly officially pronounced dead. And I had the responsibility of securing the crime scene, and I had to write the report. I had to book the evidence, their bloody clothing and badges, and
wow,
it just hits in a different way when they're your friends.
Yeah.
Not just people that you work with, but your friends that you hang out with off duty, and you go over to their houses, and you play dominoes, and you play cards, and it affected me in a horrible way for a long time, because I put the blame on myself. It was misplaced blame. For a long time, I told myself that if I wouldn't have been trying to get off early, for selfish reasons,
wow,
I may have been there with them, and that may not have happened to them. And I just couldn't shake that, and I started drinking more than I should have. I was a little reckless in my personal life. I was still like, I just still did a good job at work, but I was reckless in my personal life. I didn't see my children, because I was divorced, and I had 2 children. And they were of age, 7, 8, 9 years old, and I didn't see them enough. So my personal life was a train wreck because of the incident. And for a while, I didn't even want to be a police officer anymore, man. I did the job because that's what paid the bills. And my heart wasn't in it, because those guys that were murdered, they were like the best cops. They were good people, good heart, and they treated people well. And Kevin Burrell, everybody loved him. He grew up in the city. He was a star basketball player at Compton High. All the gangsters knew him. Everybody knew him. And I was like, it's always the good ones that get killed.
Yeah.
And it really had a profoundly negative effect on me. And I kind of like just drifted along for a little while. Yeah, it was rough, man. Even right now, to this day.
Yeah, I can see kind of choking up for it, and my condolences and my apologies to even have to relive it and experience it and go through it the first time initially. I know when we were talking, you picked this date specifically for it being the anniversary, just so you can memorialize your friends and colleagues with this live, and so shout out to them and their families.
I had to do a lot of healing, Clee, which is one of the reasons that I wrote the book.
Okay.
When I started writing it, I knew I had the title for a book. I knew that one day I might want to write a book, because I always enjoyed writing, right? But I didn't know what the book was going to be about, but I knew what the title was going to be about, because the title was kind of like indicative of what my life has always been, right? It's, I've always been in the middle, I've always lived my life in that gray area. You have black and you have white, and then you have gray in the middle, right? And I was good sometimes, I was bad sometimes, but most of the time I walked in that middle line, which was the gray area. So I knew that's what the title was going to be. So once I retired, I wanted to write about what happened that night because I had to do some healing, and writing about it was very therapeutic
I
to
believe
me.
that.
Once I was able to get it out and to admit to myself that, this wasn't my fault. If I would have been there, there might have been 3 officers dead instead of 2. You know, and so I had to face that fact that the devil always gets his due, and a lot of things that happen, you can't always blame yourself for them. And I started writing this book, and it was part of a huge healing process, and then the book just it just grew into me trying to heal all aspects of my life,
Okay.
from my troubled childhood, to the I'm sorry, to
Okay.
to the personal trauma that I experienced as an adult. And so the book became, like I said, therapeutic. It was like I was talking to a psychologist, but instead of laying on the couch, I used my keyboard. And it helped me. And when I finished this book, it felt like that I had given birth. And I know I've heard a lot of women say that before, and it's like, oh, what do you mean it felt like you gave? I understood what they were saying. I understood the metaphor once I finished writing this book. And another part of the healing was I got freeway memorial signs in the officers' memories after years. For some reason, no one had ever acknowledged them, their deaths, that they were heroes. So I took it upon myself to draft a resolution to take it to Sacramento, the California capital, and present it to get a resolution drafted so that we can get freeway memorials for these officers. And I got that approved, not just for Kevin and for Jimmy, but also for another officer who was killed in a traffic accident, before I even got hired. I did that for him as well. And once that was done, I felt like I had truly unburdened myself. I didn't have a cross to bear anymore. I was healed. And that's why I feel the way that I feel now. That's why I chose this day to talk about this, because it affected so many people in just horrible ways. Because like I said, these guys were such good men.
And thank you for sharing. I know it's not real easy to share, and I can empathize. Knock on wood. I haven't experienced the loss of a colleague or friend. I don't want to, but to actually go through it, I know it is not a fun or easy task. So I commend you on the work that you for actually going through it, and the work that you did to heal and to be again vulnerable enough to actually put the pen to paper and put it in the book. It memorializes them. And it puts your words down forever. Every your story will live on for forever. Somebody else will pick up the book and they'll learn from you the words that you put in there. They'll learn about them and how important they are to you, and still are.
Thanks, Clay.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of stories come through while working on the job. And a plethora full of them are in this book right here. How long did it actually physically take you to write the book itself and to kind of get your thoughts together and remember so many things?
Well, there's a lot of historical references in the book, and I was able to get a lot of that information because the book also talks about the end of the Compton Police Department. Okay? So the Compton Police Department was a law enforcement agency that had been in existence for over 120 years, and in 2000 they were taken over by the LA County Sheriff's Department. It was a lot of politics going on. So I became a member of the LA County Sheriff's Department in 2000, and So the book talks about, why that happened. It talks about, the entire transition. There was a narcotic investigation that was at the center
Yeah,
of
I read that. I thought it was interesting in itself.
yeah, that was interesting, and I was responsible for that investigation as well. It's a whole nother story. The way that almost tore my family apart, affected my family and me personally. But
Yeah.
to answer your question, how long it took me to write the book, like I said, I had been gathering this historical information because after I went to the sheriff's department, I went to the homicide unit. So as a homicide investigator, I had access to all of the murder books. So I was able to go through all of the Compton PD murder books, and it was like 1,400 murder books that I was able to just peruse and get historical information from. And I saw that a lot of cases were very interesting and had some historical significance in regard to what I was trying to do. So that was a lot of information that I used to fill the book. And I just kept notes of it during the time that I was working. When I retired in November of 2017, and that's when I actually picked up the pen, or in this case, open up the computer, the laptop, and started putting my thoughts to paper. Using notes. I had the title in mind, and I wanted the book to center around Kevin and Jimmy, the murders of Kevin and Jimmy, which is why I start off with that in the prologue. So I was writing the book, I was doing well, and I would print out, what I had typed up during the week, and I had picked up a post-retirement job. I was working for a guy by the name of Clarence Avant, right? He's the Black Godfather, real popular, famous heavyweight. In the Black community. And I was his bodyguard and his driver. So I would take the paper, what I had written with me, and I would proofread it in his driveway with a pencil, right? While I was waiting while he was waiting for me to take him places, when I had downtime. So I did that for a little while, and I was working my way through it, and then I had a heart attack, right? In April of 2020. And I almost died, and I had emergency surgery, which is another thing that when we talk about law enforcement, the stress, they say when you work as a cop, a lot of cops die within 5 years of retirement, just based on the accumulation of stress through all these high-powered situations that we deal with for years and years and years. And damned if it didn't happen to me. Well, I had a heart attack 3 years after I retired. So, and it happened right during COVID. So I couldn't have visits. My wife didn't come see me. I'm in the hospital room alone, and I didn't have a phone charger, so I couldn't talk to anybody. So I'm just in there, alone with my thoughts. And I started thinking, I said, well, I've been working on this book and I almost died. What if I would have died without finishing what I was trying to do? So I made a commitment. I made a promise to myself. I said, if I get better, when I get out of here, I'm going to finish this book. I'm going to nonstop this book. And when I got out of the hospital, I went home, I sat down, and I finished it. Right. So, that was a long explanation for a short question. It took about 2.5 years. Okay. For me to start getting serious about it until I finished. So
I understand why it was a long explanation. No need to apologize or none of that. I appreciate it. And I know we talked about the title. How do you think the title or the book is perceived through the cultures, whether it's white, black, or indifferent?
Well, it's the subtitle of the book is the title, Black, White, Gray all over, it is what it is. But the subtitle, I think, is where some people might have some angst regarding that, right? Because it's a Black man's odyssey in life and law enforcement, right? Because as you know, Clay, there is a difference in this country. My journey, our journeys are different from someone else's journeys.
Right.
Okay. It just is what it is. I don't care if it's right, wrong, or indifference. I'm just calling it like I see it. It's different.
Right.
And I wanted the reader to be able to walk in my shoes and to see what that journey was like, right? Not just as a law enforcement officer, but as a Black man growing up or living in America. Now, don't get me wrong. I love this country. There is no place I would rather live in my life. But we have historically had problems when it comes to race relations, and we got to fix it, right? My book is kind of like a recipe for how we can, make inroads to fixing those relationships. So, to use an age-old adage of not judging a book by its cover, you can't judge my book by its cover. Because just because I say it's a Black man's odyssey in life and law enforcement is so much more than that, right? Because I believe that we all have to come together. I believe that we're all brethren, and we all got to have serious conversations. We got to come together. We got to fix this shit because this is all of our countries. I have grandkids, and my grandkids are half white. I have grandkids that are half Mexican. I have a grandkid that is a half Filipino. Okay, my home is a melting pot. My home is what America is supposed to be. And that is what we have to learn. That is what we have to understand. So the white police officers that might have reservations about reading my book because of that subtitle, thinking that, oh, here we go again, another story about Blackness. And there are people that say that, right? Not what you think it is. It's something different. And it plays a part towards the other end of the spectrum as well when we're talking about people of color that might read the book that have an aversion or dislike for law enforcement, right? The people that say, I'm not going to read that book, a cop wrote it. It's a bridge between the culture of policing and the culture of the inner city, because we have to come to an accord. Once we can't fix this unless one side knows how the other side feels, and vice versa. Because law enforcement, we are your mothers, we are your fathers, your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, uncles, cousins. We're your sons and daughters, right? I might be standing behind you in a grocery line, or I might even be standing behind you in a medical marijuana dispensary, and you not even know who I am, right? We're all of one accord. Right. I just had a different job. I had a job that sometimes I had to tell people what to do who weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And we have to have that in our society if we're going to have a viable functioning society. Right. But along those lines, police officers have to respect the people that we're charged with taking care of. Okay. We don't get to pick and choose the type of people that we care for. We don't get to pick and choose the type of people that we take care of. We don't get to pick and choose the type of people that we provide service to. We provide service to everyone until they show us that they're trying to impede the service that we're trying to provide to others. You know what I mean? And that transcends colors. So until law enforcement officers learn how to police crime and not culture, we're going to have a problem, right? Because there is a difference. And a lot of cops haven't understood that. And what's probably even worse, that they won't even take the time to try to understand it. But unless we do, we're going to have a really bad situation. And that's why we've come to the point that we are in this country right now.
All right. Thank you for sharing. And I know your book, we were talking off camera backstage before the live actually got started. Your books received many accolades from many different institutions of different companies and different people from all walks of life. So it is hitting home. People are recognizing and people are commending it for its fine work. Like I said, I said this behind the stage show. I wish I would have read something like this when I was was a newer officer, when I was at least anywhere from year 1 to 5. Honestly, I said 3 to 5 before, but year 1 to 5, because I could have learned so much through your eyes or just through your experiences on just working the job itself, on types of encounters I could potentially have, or just handling myself in a professional atmosphere, relating to someone who didn't grow up and actually want to be a cop, but just, you explained how situations influence you to go that way, and things, also understanding how things affected you personally. Because I know a lot of times, a lot of people, like I told you before, see us as one way. They see us as one-sided, and if they see us while working, they only know the police version of you. They only know you to be who they think that you are, and not, like you said, we're somebody's sons, fathers, grandfathers. We're people out in the community where we care about society, we care about the individual person. So I think bridging the gap, like you said, goes a long way with understanding the whole person on both sides.
Yes, absolutely.
So your book, where if someone wanted to get a copy of it, where is it actually available? I know we have the website posted right here, and it'll be posted in the comment section as well. But what platforms can individuals get a copy of your book?
You can get the book at Amazon. You can get it at BAM, which is Books a Million.
Mm-hmm.
You can get it at Target, and you can also get it at Barnes and Noble.
Okay. So you're multifaceted. You're on multiple platforms.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. Have you gone anywhere? Have you had a book signing, or do you have any? Do you go anywhere and actually talk about your book to a group of people or anything like that?
No, I've unfortunately with this COVID-19 madness, it's put a damper on a lot of activities like that. I had one book signing with an author by the name of Danny Smith. He was a LA County Sheriff's homicide investigator. He's written a bunch of books. He's a fabulous writer.
Okay.
About law enforcement. Danny Smith, he's written maybe 6 or 7 books. He and I had a joint book signing together.
Mm-hmm.
And, I took 30 books with me. I sold all of them. So, people are excited about it. And, I guess what I'm most surprised about is the white readers that are buying the book. Liberals, I should say.
Okay.
People that you think wouldn't want to read about law enforcement. So maybe the title is working, in an odd, backwards kind of way, bringing them in to purchase the book. Maybe they want to find out, what's going on with law enforcement from a Black perspective. And I hope they're learning a lot when they read it, and learning that everything that you think isn't.
All right. And before we start wrapping up and all that, let me ask this question. I did a town hall back in November, where I spoke to a group of high school age students, and surprisingly, it was a good interaction. But surprisingly, one of the questions that some of the students in the classroom had was what they could do, or what things they should expect, or how could they start making steps toward becoming a police officer. They wanted to know. Can you tell us some of the pros and cons on coming into this profession, or would you suggest it, or would you condone actually a high school age student wanting to grow up to be a police officer, and how important that could be?
Oh yeah, it's everything, because we're going to need it. Like I said, you can't have a viable, functioning society without some kind of law and order. So we're gonna there's always going to be a need for that, but we need good, strong, smart, ethical people to fill those positions. We need people that are compassionate but yet strong. So if you're young and you want to do that, you have to make sure you stay out of trouble. Don't choose the path that I chose. Make sure you stay out of trouble. If you do start to go down the wrong path, though, make sure you talk to somebody, get some help,
Mm-hmm.
talk to a police officer, because believe it or not, cops they want to help you. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they would much rather deal with you when you're on at the crossroads than have to deal with you once you've chosen the wrong path. So
Right.
it's okay to try to get some advice from a police officer if you're thinking about taking the wrong path. Otherwise, make sure you stay out of trouble. Keep your credit good, which is one of the processes of a successful background. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it affects some people adversely. Because just because you run into some problems with credit doesn't mean that you'll be a bad police officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
They used to use that as a gauge to whether you're going to be a responsible individual, but I don't agree with that.
Right.
But you should try to keep your credit score good, and just stay out of trouble, keep a good driving record,
Mm-hmm.
and if you want to be a cop, God bless you. God bless
Mm-hmm.
you. It's a calling, though. It's more than just a job, because you can die out there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you absolutely can. It's a real world job. It's a real world occupation. I remember one of my older police officers when I first started said, "This job is a meat grinder. It's gonna chew you up. It's a lot of fun in the process, and you got a front row ticket to the best seat, the best show on earth."
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're going to help a lot more people than you hurt.
Yep. Yep. I know we talked about a lot of things and we discussed your book. I don't want to get too deep into the book because I still want to leave a little suspense for the viewers to actually go out and get their own copy and dive into it so they can digest all the gems and pearls that you put into the book itself. But is there anything that we skipped, or is there anything that you would like to say right now? The floor is yours.
No, I think you pretty much covered it all, Clee. I got a chance to talk about the murders of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke very nicely about my book, and I appreciate it. I think that the book will be helpful for not only law enforcement, but for other people that want to understand what goes through the mind of a law enforcement officer, and the day-to-day rigors of the job of a law enforcement officer, particularly of a Black law enforcement officer, because that like I said earlier, that journey is different. But when you're a Black law enforcement officer, it doesn't even matter when you're at work, okay? Because no matter who you work with, you'll sacrifice your life for them,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the job. And we protect each other, we love each other when we're working. We'll lay down our lives for each other when we're working.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that for the most part, the people, men and women in this country, feel like that, regardless of their professions. But we have to have an accord. We have to come to an accord, rather, and we have to work out what's going on in this country as far as the division is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a problem. That much is crystal clear. But there's a problem on both sides, and until we're able to recognize that and understand that we're all the same, regardless of race, creed, or color, we're going to have problems. And I talk about Martin Luther King in my book. One of the best things that he ever said was, it's all about the content of your character.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, that's what matters. And if we can start looking at each other, as far as each other's character, we'll go a long way toward healing the divide.
There we go. There we go. Good words. Good words. This has been a good lot. I learned a lot. I know we spoke briefly beforehand, and we've been communicating via Messenger or text messaging before the live. It's nice to officially meet you and hear your story. Nice to read your book. I felt like I told you once I completed your book, I said, wow, I feel like I actually know you and I haven't even met you. You know, it's impactful and it's important. Thank you for coming on and blessing this show and explaining your side of the story and giving your viewpoints. And you did a tremendous job, and I appreciate everything that you have done and are doing.
Thank you, Clay. And you be safe out there, man.
All right. Thank you. I will. And again, I'm honored to go live with you to commemorate the memory of your colleagues and friends.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Make sure you guys tune in for more. Make sure you guys check out his book. The website's here. It'll also be in the comments section. Make sure you guys get your own copy. It is worth the read. You will definitely learn something, and it is very impactful. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're out of here. Peace.
Gather around, class. Hello, Sergeant Be Safe, and welcome back again.
Hello, it's my pleasure.
Listen up, we're gonna learn how to have a safe and fun Halloween.
Hi, I'm Kasaya. I'm the class speaker for the day.
Hello, Kasaya. I'm here to remind you and your friends how to be safe while you're out trick-or-treating. Simple things you can do is wear bright colors, keep a flashlight or a glow stick with you. Slow down, be alert. Don't be in such a rush. Put your cell phone away so it doesn't distract you. Walk on sidewalks or pathways. Cross the street at the corners. But before you cross, check for cars, and if you see any, stop. Make sure you look the driver in the eye so he knows that you're there. And most importantly, stay with an adult. Let your parents check your candy when you get home. Don't eat it while you're out and about, because all candy ain't dandy. And there are some mean people out there that will put poison into it. Just follow these short rules and you'll have a safe and happy Halloween.
Thank you for visiting. You always give good advice.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, kids.
Happy Halloween!
Now, parents and adults, make sure you slow down. Kids are going to be excited and distracted. I want you too to get rid of your distractions, like your cell phone. If you're out driving, keep your headlights on the entire time. Trick or treat normally lasts from the hours of 5:30 till 9:30 p.m. Keep your kids in groups with family and friends that you know. Go to neighborhoods and houses of people that you know. Don't let your kids eat the candy while they're out trick or treating. Take it home and inspect it yourself. And remember, all candy ain't dandy, and one pill can kill. Also, just because you're out having fun and trick-or-treating, don't forget to lock up your home and car and protect your valuables. Rob You Blind and Chance Wilder are still out on the prowl. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Yes. Oh no.
Party pooper, be safe. Ooh.
Happy Halloween.
Subscribe now.